Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Brad Bono. I'm the VP of Large Plan and Education Services for BPAS. I'm very lucky to be joined today by my colleague, Kate Myman, one of our participant education consultants here at BPAS. For those of you not familiar with BPAS, we're a national provider of retirement plans, benefit plans, fund administration, and institutional trust services. All told, we serve approximately 6,100 plans. Today, Kate and I will be sharing best practices in leading an effective and impactful education session. So let's take a quick look at our agenda. I will start with why education has become so important to plan sponsors and participants. Then I'll review some ideas to help successfully prepare for education meetings. Kate will then take over and dive into best practices in the delivery of the meeting, some resources available to assist you, and how to follow up after the meeting in the proper fashion. A quick housekeeping note, and then get ready for your first polling question. If you have questions during the discussion, please add them to the Q&A feature at the bottom. We do plan to keep our prepared remarks to about 20 to 25 minutes, so we'll leave some time to address those questions at the end. Any we don't get to during our time, we will follow up with you after the call. So let's get to know your experience with today's topic with our first polling question. How experienced are you with providing participant education meetings? Brand new to education and looking to get started, done some in the past, but looking for some ways to improve, or you're a seasoned pro, but can always learn something new. We'll give you about 30 seconds and then we'll take a look at the results. All right. So not too many newbies. Looks like some folks that are in the middle, just looking for some tips, and lots of seasoned pros. So that's good to hear. So I do want to mention, as we go through this conversation at the end, if there's best practices of yours that you didn't hear, please feel free to throw those into the Q&A as well, and we'll pass those along to the audience. So we appreciate that. All right. So why has education become so important? I've been working in the retirement industry for over 30 years now. About 19 to 20 of that's involved leading retirement or financial wellness education teams and developing education products. During that period, I've never seen plan sponsors more focused on trying to find ways to support employees with retirement and financial education than I have in the last, I'd say, 4 to 5 years. I think there are really three primary reasons for that, and I think this slide kind of points out some of those key reasons. The first one is the obvious. Plan sponsors know participants aren't saving enough for retirement. They still want to be able to help more of their employees get retirement ready. Number two, maybe a little more recent, they also know participants are continuing to deal with a high level of financial stress. But I think what more are starting to understand is the impact financial stress can actually have on the company's bottom line. If you look at the stat at the bottom, John Hancock was the first that I saw put an actual dollar amount to the cost of financial stress. As you can see, they believe it cost an organization over $1,900 per employee per year in lost productivity and absenteeism brought on by financial stress. They've been doing that study for about 4 years. I think that's actually the lowest number in those 4 years. At one point, their calculation was high as $2,400. So again, that's really shined a light on the need to help employees focus on reducing their financial stress. And then lastly, and I think most recently, with so many employers across multiple industries facing challenges with employee retention and attraction, I think those plan sponsors are looking at ways to differentiate and show the value of their retirement plan and benefits package. As you can see on the slide to the right side, employers are placing a lot of value on the benefits provided when considering a job change. So you need to consider the education you provide can really help employees not only be retirement ready, but understand the value of the retirement plan benefit they're receiving from their organization to assist in retention efforts. That education support you provide is also a cost-effective way for your client to enhance their overall benefits package. I think those last two reasons for the demand in education go beyond just an HR concern and have started to get the attention of the finance side of an organization. I think that's led to an increased willingness for organizations to pay for education services. Like most of you on this call, I worked on the advisory side of the business prior to joining BPAS in 2024. In 2022 and 2023, just under 70% of our new advisory wins at my old firm also purchased education services. So again, I think it's important to keep in mind when you're in front of participants, it's not only the impact you can have on them and their retirement readiness, but also the benefit that provides to your contact and plan sponsor. All right, so let's jump into some preparation best practices. I feel strongly one of the keys to a successful education session is really providing participants topics that participants actually care about. So we highly recommend surveying participants in advance of delivering education sessions whenever possible. It's a great way to gauge their knowledge levels on the plan. How are they making investment decisions? What are the topics they want to learn about? And then what are the delivery methods they prefer for receiving education? I've always found when employees, participants see their feedback is driving the curriculum of the education delivered in the meeting, they're more apt to attend and be engaged. I also think your plan sponsor gets credit for asking for their input and feedback to help drive what's delivered in education sessions. I've seen, I'm sure you have as well, a lot of the employers that you work with have workforces that have varying levels of understanding of retirement and financial education topics. Another best practice for consideration is setting up tracks of learning when you're delivering education. Maybe a more advanced track of topics, a basic track where people can then self-select the areas of study that mean the most to them and fit their knowledge or understanding levels. The other thing with surveys, great way to find out those financial wellness topics beyond the retirement plan, budgeting, debt management, things they need to learn more about that then can help them get the foundation they need to go back and start saving more for retirement. Another key resource for preparation and targeting your sessions is reviewing the data or the plan reporting. What's the participation rate? What percentage of participants are contributing up under the match? Are there a low percentage of participants on track for retirement? Do you have a high percentage of younger participants in a stable value investment? These answers can help you dictate the areas you focus on during the meetings. One of the things we've tried to do recently for clients that have multiple locations and want on-site is use that data to target the meeting locations for the places or the participants that need the help the most. Work with your record keeper to look at participation rates and average deferral rates by location. That way you can prioritize the on-sites to the locations with the lowest participation rates and average deferrals. It saves your plan sponsors money in terms of travel costs, and you can make a bigger impact by, again, helping the people that need the help the most. The last one, pretty obvious one, know the plan provision, study the plan. A lot of times you may be covering a topic that has nothing to do with the plan features, but there's always a good chance some of those questions are going to come out for the people who don't have a good understanding of the plan. So always be ready with an understanding of their plan features. The next slide, a few more quick preparation reminders here. Work with your plan sponsor, create an invitation, a meeting announcement. Again, if you surveyed, ask for feedback, make sure that meeting announcement shows that, hey, this is being delivered based on the feedback we gathered from you, the employee. Another thing I'd say is make sure it's delivered. We've all showed up for meetings only to find out no one was notified, and then they're scrambling to get people into a conference room, right? So I always like to be asked to be copied whenever it's distributed out to participants to make sure they've been notified. If you're doing group sessions followed by one-on-ones, another great practice, try to get people signed up in advance for those one-on-ones, right? A lot of times, if you're just waiting after, you could have 3 or 4 people waiting at a time. Have them sign up in advance. With the ease now of using calendar links, You can provide a link where participants can sign up for 20 to 30-minute sessions. You know how much time you need to spend at the location, and everyone gets their own time to be able to answer their questions. Next up, give your plan contact an opportunity to review the presentation in advance. We all know the people that we're dealing with have a lot of, are wearing a lot of hats, right? They don't have a lot of extra time. Build in extra time because they may not be super timely with their feedback. We all have clients who always make changes to whatever we give them and some that never do. But again, make sure you're building in that time so that you go into that meeting clear with your plan sponsor on exactly what's going to be covered. Another somewhat obvious one, when you go on site, know the technical capabilities in advance. Ask questions about the room setup, Wi-Fi access, display connectivity capabilities. If you typically run into firewall issues with your laptop, your company laptop, you may want to share the deck with your plan contact to make sure it's available if you run into any of those issues. Also keep in mind, some organizations won't let you put a hard drive into the laptop. So again, just be prepared for any kind of situation that can arise there. So again, not again rocket science that we're talking about here, but just hopefully some tips and reminders that you can take to be a little more successful in your preparation. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kate to dive into the delivery of the meetings. Kate, take it away.
Thank you so much, Brad. So now that we've talked a little bit about that preparation, let's spend a little bit of a longer moment looking at narrowing in on making that presentation, right? We want to encourage you to zero in on your goals for the meeting. There is no way to teach every participant everything about their plan in just one session, right? We know it can't be done. So let's let go of that attachment to everything and let's use what we've learned to guide our presentation's focus. That can be a really important first step in putting that presentation together. So, always available to all of you in our partner toolbox, we have a huge slide deck available to you. It should make it really easy to make your presentation look polished, clean, and consistent. And that's a great resource that we offer to you. But that being said, I cannot stress this enough. Don't use every slide for every meeting. You have a limited amount of time with your audience. And within that limited amount of time that they may have scheduled you for, you also have a limited amount of time that you'll really have your audience's true attention. You spent time finding out more about what those participants want and need in this meeting. That's important. So you're going to pick and choose the slides that are best targeted to your audience and narrow it down. You will probably want to remind participants about the plan provisions, any match, current contribution limits, right? Those basic things that are going to come up most years in most presentations, just because you will have some new hires along, um, people who may have forgotten some of those basics. But beyond that, you really want to focus in on what this group really needs and tailor your presentation around that topic, or maybe those few topics that they've tagged as the most important to them. Do not try to cover everything. It won't serve anyone well. It won't serve you well, um, because you'll be taking a lot of time on such a wide variety of topics, and it won't serve them well because they won't be able to stay focused on what you're talking about the whole time. Now, another thing that will come up a little bit later, but you'll really want to make sure that you include action steps within your presentation. Participants generally want to know how they can improve their situation, even if it's just an incremental change, right? So don't forget to give them something to work on or work towards in your presentation. You really want to make that concrete for them. So that's going to be one of the pieces in creating that presentation. Once you've narrowed your focus and given your information that has been requested, you want to give them action steps in that presentation. while you're actually doing the presenting, there are a few suggestions that we'd like to make. And first and foremost, really, you want to aim to keep yourself to 20 to 25 minutes for your presentation with some time for questions at the end. So, as I mentioned, your time is limited in terms of audience attention. You want to be brief and effective. And in order to do that, you know that this is a optimal time frame for getting your message across and making sure that people are still engaged in your presentation. So I know that it does sound like a brief time frame, but it's going to help you to keep your message targeted and make you stand out. Think about when you get a meeting invitation sent your way, right? We all get probably several a day. And 30 minutes sounds much more manageable than 1 hour. Think about that, right? When you get an invite in your email, looking at your calendar being as packed as it is, looking at that time frame, 30 minutes doesn't sound that bad in comparison to a lot of those hour meetings. And participants are going to feel the same way. What's more that is that you're showing attendees that you're being respectful of their time. And I promise we're going to do that today too for you. And we hope to keep your attention to the end as well. So, with that being said, along with that, watching your time, don't bombard your audience. You want to make sure that you are not going to be super content heavy for a long stretch of time, right? You've all been to a webinar that has been like that. Even with the most engaging presenter, not everyone is going to be able to sustain their full and undivided attention for an entire hour or even for an entire half hour, right? For many of us, by the end, though, of an hour's meeting, you're feeling a little distracted, maybe a little antsy, kind of want to get up out of your seat or go get a drink or take a little bit of a break. You've probably long since forgotten the questions you had at the beginning of the presentation by the time questions are requested at the end. And we don't want to continue that trend. Short and focused. Be engaging. If you can, include some polling questions, maybe a QR code embedded for people to make use of within the presentation. We often use our website's risk tolerance quiz as a QR code in many of our presentations so that participants can use that even during the presentation and get themselves a better sense of what kind of investor they are, giving people a little bit more in the way of interactivity and ways to re-engage in the presentation as you're going can really make your meeting more memorable. Our third point here is to champion the plan. And this is something that, Brad touched on a little bit earlier, but this is really an important benefit of all of these participants' employment. Help them to see the value in it. We get that not every plan is created equal, and some are easier to champion than others, right? Some plans are going to have all kinds of bells and whistles and offers to really bring participants into the plan, and some will have fewer of those. So we know that sometimes it's not as easy to really sell the plan to people. But this is a benefit, no matter what type of plan, what type of plan provisions they have. It is a benefit of their employment, and we want people to feel good about their ability to prepare for their financial future. Find a way to really bring them back to why that plan is such a good fit for them and going to help them in the long haul. And then encourage people to take action. This is going back to those action items I mentioned earlier, but people really do want to do better, right? They want to set themselves up for the future, but it can seem really daunting if you don't have a good place to start. It sometimes feels like a really big ask to suddenly take a piece of their paycheck and put that someplace else. They may be having all kinds of other financial stress, as we mentioned earlier, but come up with some action items that help them feel like they can get a start and feel accomplished when they check something off their to-do list. Maybe it is just to log in and update their beneficiary designation. Maybe it's to go into their account and check that their email and cell phone numbers are registered in the system. Maybe it's to encourage them to increase their contribution by 1%. Make sure that at least one of your action items is something that everyone can do, because we want everyone to be able to go into their account and complete an action and feel accomplished, right? You always feel better when you've checked one thing off your to-do list. You want them to log into their account, and once they're in there, even if they were only originally going in to update their beneficiary designation or add in their cell phone number, while they're in there and looking around, they're also more likely to make an increase while they're already there. So consider that it's helping everyone to have them go back into their account and take some kind of action. It's going to make a difference. So at this point, because we'd like to try and help keep you all engaged, we're going to ask our second question. So here is question number 2. Which of the topics we've covered so far are you most interested in putting into practice with your clients? Is it surveying participants in advance of the meetings to identify those desired topics? Utilizing plan reports and data to target education to specific behaviors in the plan? Developing targeted presentations within that 20 to 30-minute time frame with clear next steps, or championing those plans to participants during meetings in support of your client or the HR department. So we'll give you about 5 more seconds. All right, so we've got some pretty good participation in our poll. Thank you all for taking the time to take it. So it looks like we've got a pretty good mix here, but surveying in advance and utilizing those plan reports and data to target your education seem like the most popular responses. And that's really great. It helps to target those presentations and develop those presentations by having that data. And we definitely encourage you to find ways to implement those different pieces, because they really do go a long way in helping to set up those presentation topics, and really keep those participants engaged and wanting to come along to those meetings. Brad, did you want to add anything before I move on to our last few slides?
No, just happy with the mix. And I know we did get a question in the Q&A in terms of a sample of the survey we use. We will pass that along. So anyone else that is looking for a sample of that survey in the follow-up, please reach out. We can share a sample of what we've been using. But we typically customize it, but we have a base survey that we've been using consistently and happy to share.
Thanks, Brad.
Yep.
All right. So finally, once that presentation is completed, right, you're going to want to follow up. And this is a pretty straightforward suggestion, but it really does help you to maintain that strong working relationship with each of your different clients. So first, we always recommend sending an email, right? You want to send a thank you, maybe a quick meeting recap, any follow-up questions to consider. Think about, there are sometimes in meetings where you're going to get a question and you may not know the answer. That's really okay. It's fine to say, you know what? I'm not 100% sure of the answer on that. I'm going to follow up, find out for you, and then I'll get back to you. So that follow-up email is a great place to send back the responses, the answers to those questions that you've considered along the way. And then in terms of other things, you want to maybe include those action items again or next steps. Those can all go in the follow-up email. We also would say, if it was a virtual meeting, that we always encourage you to send a copy of the video to the plan sponsor if it was virtual. That can be really helpful to them. It might be another resource when they have new employees. It might help them to be able to distribute that for anyone who missed the meeting. But that video link can be really important. And then, of course, you want to share feedback and that meeting attendee data with a plan sponsor. Any of those plan sponsors or internal service providers may need more information for their records. They may need that attendance list. They might just be retaining records of those education meetings for company initiatives or to track participation for their total rewards program or something along those lines. Having that information for them can really be a big feature. And so definitely make sure those things come along. And then finally, you can always send a follow-up survey. Once you've provided that education that they needed in the first place, getting a sense of, okay, so now where does that leave us? What do you still need? What can we do to help make sure that this relationship continues to grow in a positive direction? Finding that information from a follow-up survey can be really helpful. So, with all of those things said, congratulations! You've completed a successful education meeting and are ready for more. So, now that we've walked you through our successful education meeting, we'd like to open it back up to all of you. What questions do you still have for us that we can help you with today?
And hey, Kate, I want to jump in with one other thing that I think I failed to mention when we were talking about surveys. I think it probably goes without saying, but it is important to make sure that survey is going out from your plan contact, right? So they're receiving it from someone they're used to, not a provider. It's really helped us with the number of respondents or the percentage of respondents that we're getting. And again, don't be disappointed if you send it out and you're more than likely not going to get 50% of participants to respond, right? We know how many messages we get and emails we get, but to me, if you get in the 20, even 25% of respondents, it's enough of an audience that can help you drive what you deliver going forward. Other questions for the group from the group?
Yeah, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box or the chat box if you happen to have any questions for us.
Okay, we got a question on one-on-one meetings with participants. Again, that's all going to depend on, we like to use, and Kate mentioned it earlier, for the one-on-one meetings with participants, the risk profile quiz. But really, I think it's important with a one-on-one to take it in the direction the participant wants to, right? So a lot of times you schedule a one-on-one meeting and that participant just has one question that they didn't want to ask in front of their friends and coworkers in the group session, right? So they want to sit down and be able to ask it individually. So to me, it could be anything from helping someone with a budgeting worksheet to, again, going through that risk profile quiz to helping them understand how to log on to the system to check their account. So it's really taking it where they want to take it. I think 20 to 30 minutes is appropriate for those. I also think depending on the workforce, you need to make sure you're scheduling them at a time that works for the workforce, right? That may be in the evenings because some people may want to bring a spouse if they're not the primary decision maker on their finances. We did get a question. Yes, we do partner on, if we work with provide assistance or materials for education, yes, we will partner with our advisor partners or work with plan sponsors on education. So we can reach out to you directly on the question we just got there. And Lisa, yes, we can. There are definitely paycheck calculators and different things that participants are able to use on our website. We also have some tools in our BPS toolbox and BPS University. But I'll send you, Lisa, some more direct information on your questions on what you're looking for. And Lisa, you're officially our MVP of question askers, so thank you. All right, we are at time. We can't tell you it needs to be 30 minutes and then not have it be 30 minutes. So thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you being here and also the engagement and the questions. Any follow-up information, please, you'll get the recording and then how to contact us with any additional questions. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone.